So it's trying to try all these new food places and, the what? Yeah, it's got noise canceling. Look, a lot of people on YouTube have a nice sound set up, and there's the soundproofing and the foam and things that, nice quiet room. Let me explain something. I'm in a basement next to an HVAC system. Yeah, it's as good as it's gonna get for now. Steve Weiner here from GetRubix.com, and today we're actually going to take a look at the current state of our Intune migration tool, specifically the end user experience. We're about to release the V3 of the solution itself, and I figured before that, the first time I made that video was early on. A lot of people weren't watching, and had really bad audio on that. So I want to redo the experience, show what we would expect it to be, and then in the next few weeks get into the new mechanics of it. Yeah, it's just me and the HVAC all day long. What's HVAC stand for? Do you know? Okay, so I have a Windows 10 machine, 22H2. I'm logged in as, let's see here, Luke Skywalker. Okay. And let's take a look at a few things. Change account settings. Okay, so there's Luke Skywalker at rubixdev.com. So what we want to show is if Luke Skywalker is migrated to the stevecapacity.com domain, right? His email, his, all the office content. How do we move the machine and make this a fairly seamless experience for Luke here? So here's what we have going on. And also, before I get into what we're actually going to do, I want to show you some of the directories. So you can see I have a good amount of stuff in documents. I have things in downloads. I have some pictures, some goofy stuff. And clearly I have things on my desktop. Two more things I want to show you, though. Very important when we're considering preserving user data. I have, if I open Google Chrome, I'm signed in with a Gmail account. I have some bookmarks and my settings. And same thing with Visual Studio. I've changed some of the defaults, so I prefer the light setting here. I've messed with a few other things, so it's very important we preserve those. Now, let me walk you through the process. So if I open the company portal, and Luke here has been told to run this, we have a few new things. So we're going to look at these two, the V3. So if I look at the Premigrate backup V3, what this does is this is going to actually look at our device and essentially do some staging. So this can be deployed silently, unbeknownst to our user. I'm just doing it this way to kind of walk us through it and explain what it does. But what this is going to do is this is going to collect some information about the device and take a look at how much data we have in our local user profile and determine the best way to move that over to the new profile that'll ultimately be created when Luke signs in with new credentials. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And if you've been following the series, you know that this is something we added in V2. And I want to show you some of the enhancements that were made here. So we have some better logging going on. One thing we're also doing is when we have to create dynamic variables that we're saving for the device, we're taking advantage of writing to the registry as opposed to creating an XML file. So that's a newer thing. It keeps things nice and tidy. We don't need extra files hanging around, and it's just ultimately a better experience. So once this is done, we'll get the toast notification, and then I'll show you what's happened here. And again, this process should be deployed as a required app from Intune. It should be silent, and just run, without anyone knowing what's going on here. But we'll take a look at the output. Okay, so we're successfully installed. Now, what happened here? Let's go to the logs. So if I go to C program data, Intune migration, that's where we're writing things to. We have our installed flag. So this is the actual log, pre-migrate log. So let's try to take a look at what actually happened here. So a few things, right? We are loading some pieces to connect to blob storage. we're gathering some information. So we're getting the current username, right? So that we can build directories around it. We get the host name. So you can see it's getting the name of my tenant. It's gathering based on the serial number. It gets the Autopilot ID and the Intune ID. That's going to be useful later when we have to remove this. And it even gets my Autopilot group tag. It then determines the paths to be migrated. So in this case, I've pre-specified app data local, app data roaming, documents, desktop, pictures, and downloads. And it's going ahead and it's calculating all that. So right now, it's telling me the size of my user data altogether is 2.1 gigs. And because I have 31 gigs free, I would need 6 gigs free to do this locally, meaning stage the content and pull it over locally. If I didn't have that much space, I could use just 4 gigs. So let's say 5 were available. Well, that means I'm over the 4 gig mark. It's going to let me back up to blob storage, which is something we'll get into in a subsequent video. But basically, it's telling me, based on that calculation, I have more than enough space to copy the data locally. So I begin to copy it. So we use robocopy, and it's I'll scroll through here. What it actually does is it makes a here, let me head over here for you to show you what actually happened. It staged everything to the users public temp, and you can see I have my 2 app data directories and my desktop, documents, downloads, everything's here. Okay, so that's fantastic. And again, the user wouldn't even know that's happening. The other thing we're doing is we are, let's see, users backups profile. Okay, what we are doing is we're also taking those variables that I pulled out that I will need later in the process, and we are writing them to the registry. Again, we like this because it's out of the user's face. They don't need to know about it. So we go to HK local machine software, and look at that. We have an Intune migration one, and we're just storing our variables, the Autopilot ID, the group tag. The GUID is a new unique identifier that we are adding. So if we have to name our blob container, we can use that. If we have to track this migration for any specific reason, this particular migration process now has its own GUID. We have the migrate method that we're using, the username. So everything we need right there. So that's done. It's in the background. That's the prep work. Now it's time to migrate. I email Luke. I tell him, hey, we're going to need you to go grab this app. You can push this as required. I would recommend trying to let the user do this because, you know, it's just a better experience to kick this off. So I'm the end user. I have my device. I'm Azure AD joined to Rubik's Dev. I'm managed in Intune. In fact, I'm just going to shift over and show you this device real quick, as I forgot to do that. Okay, so if I go to devices, Windows, I believe this is it. Let me check the serial, 7988. So this is my device. You can see Rubik's Dev. This looks Skywalker. It has policy. It's registered in Autopilot. So 7, let's copy that serial. Let's go check on it in Autopilot. There it is, right? 79. What did I copy? The wrong thing. Oh, 7988. Yeah, so it's right there and it's registered. Okay, so the goal is to get it out of here and get it into Steve capacity. And because I want to show you this, what am I typing here? I don't even know. Let me open up another browser, and we will log into Steve capacity. Steve capacity. Cool. So in the Steve capacity tenant, I could show you the 7988 device does not exist. Yep, not here. And it's also not in Intune. 7988. Nope, nothing there. But I do have a corresponding user. So if you look, Luke has been migrated here. So same UPN in the beginning. with a different domain name. So he's all ready to go. He should be able to sign in. So I'm going to go ahead and run the Intune migration. So this is the good time. This is a good time to start, like, we could put some kind of counter up. I don't know if I'll be able to figure that out. But we have a, starting now, when I hit install, I am leaving my Rubik's dev tenant, which Tenant A, the source tenant, and I am joining Steve Capacity, which is Tenant B, my destination tenant. And I'm doing this without wiping the device, without losing any user data. And I want to show you the process here. So it's going ahead now. It's taking a look at the variables we set in the registry. It went ahead, unjoined me from Azure. We ran a provisioning package to move me to the new tenant, and you can see it's done, and it's letting me know I'm about to be signed out. This is one of, I'll say 2.5 reboots that's required, but again, when we think about how much time this takes to do, we're now talking minutes as opposed to, hours, if not days of lost productivity due to wiping a device and, having to redeploy it in another tenant, which is great for end users. So let's see what happens. All right, so this is our first reboot. There is a middle reboot. We call it middle boot. And that happens and it's automated. So the user can't do anything here. Communication is key, letting a user know what to expect, sending emails with screenshots ahead of time. But I'll just show you, if I click here, I won't be able to log in, right? So nothing here. The device might as well be in limbo. It's not in Tenant A anymore, and it's not yet in Tenant B. We don't have to do anything here, because within 30 seconds, it's going to reboot itself one more time. And then, that'll be essentially it to get to the new tenant. So let's wait for that second reboot to kick in. There we go. Now things should look a little different, because now the device has been joined to Steve Capacity. We already see the lock screen on there. That's beautiful. What happens if I click this? So this is purposely set to other user so that the user knows to use their new credentials. The old credentials won't work anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and now change the UPN and sign in. And there we go. Policy is kicked in. That's why preparing Windows is the same as it should be, right? It's not showing me the animation. It's sticking there. I'm not going to wait for any user enrollment status page. Different desktop wallpaper. Notice some things already. Okay, so let's go take a look at the settings real quick, because what kind of wizardry happened here. So Luke Skywalker at stevecapacity.com. Now, one thing you'll notice is in earlier versions, we couldn't get rid of the old relic account. That was kind of stuck here. It wouldn't do anything. It was just stuck here. So we were able to solve for that. Teams is launching. It's automatically got me signed into my new tenant. I'm going to close that for now because it doesn't have to launch. One thing I do want to show you now, if we do go to the Steve Capacity tenant, so now I am going to go to, let me, real quick, hold on. Let me show you a few things. So let's go back to my devices here on Autopilot. It's gone. The 7988 is gone. It's most likely gone from Intune as well, or yep, it is, right? 7988, that's gone. Okay, it left Tenant A, and if we were to look at Tenant B, this is the device, but notice it has no primary user. It's not enrolled by anybody. That's because the provisioning package did it. So this won't work because I don't know this is Luke's device. Okay, so it looks like I could see in the background my shortcuts came back, and now it is going to force me to sign out one more time. It's going to force the reboot one more time in order to put a few things back. So one of the things that's going to happen is, now that we're safe in the new tenant, we can put the login screen policy back where I can easily see the last signed in user, right? Kind of put all the pieces back now that now that we're finally there. So all in all, I think we are currently at, okay, so I rebooted, and there we go. So everything's back with Luke. Sign in. And his wallpaper even came back, right? So really nice all around. But I'll tell you, here's the funny thing. So the data didn't just come back to the point where we have our files. I'm going to go ahead and launch Chrome. So take a look at this. Chrome came back. It is going to force me to sign in again, but all my settings, all my bookmarks, all I would have to do is re-sign in. What about Visual Studio? It kept the light theme and all my other settings, so that's there as well. If we go explore the rest of the stuff, so now when I go to downloads, documents, everything came back. I'm in the new tenant. Let's check in on Intune to see what the deal is there. Okay, so now when I go back to check on the device in Intune, take a look at the primary user. That's been changed to Luke Skywalker. Now, this is not just an Intune correlation. We're actually able to, let me hop over to the Entra portal, and I want to show you the device in Azure so it has a proper owner, because that's generally a concern here, because this runs deep, right? It's not just Intune. Okay, so if we want to do, let me see, M365 7988. Okay, there it is. If I look at the device, take a look at the owner. So it's got the right name, the user principal name. You know, it's, you know, perfect what we have here. So really no issues at all. So it's the objects have been associated. Okay, so a few more things to look at in Intune is the Bitlocker recovery key. That's been moved, so we were able to actually take the current key and escrow it up here to the new tenant. You can also, if you want to go the route, you can just have Bitlocker disabled and re-enable it when you apply policy from the new tenant. You know, either way is okay. If we look at group membership, it's part of the M365 devices, the dynamic group, and that is because we applied the old group tag to the Azure object itself before it's even registered in Autopilot, which is the last thing we do just to save time, right? Okay, so as part of the last grand act of this, I do want to show you, if we go to Windows Enrollment, Devices, take a look at the device. It's now in Autopilot. It got the group tag. It's still going to assign dynamically. It's not assigned yet, but that's kind of the last piece of the puzzle. So we've come a long way since the first version. It's fairly seamless. We have more options for backing up user data. If you are using OneDrive, you know, you can just go with that. You'll still have to figure out if it's important enough to move the app data folder so that you know, all your app preferences and things like that. But all in all, we're looking at I think a much better experience. Thanks to a lot of our, what we're going to soon call the founding members of the Discord server, we are gonna, there is going to be a special gift everyone gets once we hit 100 members in there, which we're getting very close, almost at 80, I believe. So definitely hop in. There's other folks there who've been using this experience, some great dialogue, great things with troubleshooting and feedback. So it's becoming just an awesome community, and that we're super happy with. So next coming episodes, I'm going to take us through how we create the V3 version of the migration. We're going to have new code in the GitHub repo, new written blogs for it. So, you know, hopefully everyone's cool with that. And I'm done.